What's up, everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with Plugin Boutique, and today we're taking a quick look at Tape Pro from a brand new manufacturer on pluginboutique.com called Caelum Audio. They've got a number of great plugins. We're just going to be taking a look at Tape Pro, but I highly suggest clicking that link in the video description to check out all their other offerings. Tape Pro has 6 saturation algorithms with hysteresis, asymmetry, and resonance control, 21 selectable impulse responses from 11 different tape machines, 12 different noise algorithms, versatile wow and flutter modules, and a realistic sounding tape delay. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, so this is Tape Pro on the screen here, and we're just going to run through the main features and how to get started using this incredible plugin. The first one is the saturation. This is the first point in the signal chain. As I said, we've got 6 different saturation algorithms: tape, digital, rectify, half-rectify, sine, and smooth. So what I'm going to actually do is bypass some of these other ones. So we've got the delay, it's already bypassed. The noise, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I'm also going to turn off the response or the impulse response for the tape emulation. And let's just focus on the saturation for a second. Come into tape. So as I said in the beginning of the video, we have drive control, asymmetry control, hysteresis, and resonance control as well. And I have the Tape Pro on a mix bus right now at 100% wet. A cool thing that I really like about this is it's got a number of drop-down menus, and some of them have quite a few options to choose from. If you select one, you can then use your up and down arrow on your keyboard to flip through. So I've said it before in videos, the way I like to test saturation and distortion plugins is I crank the drive up as high as it will go, and then I flip through each one of the different algorithms so I can get that big picture of what they sound like. Very rarely do I push it that far in practice, but I like to understand if I push it that far, what is it, a digital sound? Is it a crunchy sound? Is it a really warm sound? Is it a completely distorted, or is it smooth? And it's just a good way to do this. All right, so that's what those sound like. And then obviously we have the asymmetry, hysteresis, and resonance controls on top of that. So I'm actually gonna roll back on it. I'm gonna put it back on tape. Perfect. Moving from there, we've got the impulse responses, which I didn't know before I actually did a podcast with Aberrant DSP, the developers from that team, and they told me that to make a tape emulation, to get the character or the frequency response of the tape, you do the same thing that you do with a convolution reverb, which is create an impulse response to get the full picture of the frequency response of a certain area, or in this case, a certain tape. So again, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and choose one. Then I'm going to use my up and down arrows on here just so you can hear the differences. I'm also going to come over here and just pull down the high loss, which is a dynamic EQ that when the highs come in hot, it will push them down. And then there's also the low pass, which I'm just going to leave all the way up so we can really hear the full frequency spectrum. Obviously, these filters can be used to further sculpt the sound, but let's just hear them in all their glory to start. All right, so those are the main flavors here. We've got the 3 cassette types, the main types, and these are just using different technology to record to the tape. We've got type 1, type 2, and type 4. And then we have a number of more specific tape types, and then we have these minimum phase ones down here. Now, as the frequency is spread through time on a recorded tape, the regular impulse responses can cause phase issues when they're combined with the dry signal. So if you're going to be using Tape Pro in parallel on a bus or on a send, Caelum Audio recommends that you use the minimum phase IRs instead of of the regular ones. So in this case where I have it on a bus, it's actually a mixed bus before the master, I would want to use the minimum phase ones. So this is just going to help me get rid of phase issues before they start using the technology that Caelum Audio have included inside of this plugin. Very cool. Now moving from there, we have the noise section. And again, we got a ton of different noises to choose from. So what I'm going to do is just turn up the gain. And I'm going to go ahead and choose one, and I'm just going to flip through them so you can hear. Now there is a crosstalk control. You can add this noise pre or post delay, and there are filtering options, a high pass and low pass filter down here at the bottom as well. So you do have a ton of control over the sound of the noise module. Let's go ahead and hear the different flavors. That sounds like wind over a microphone. That one sounds like a storm with rain hitting a tarp or something, doesn't it? That's even closer to it. So there you go. Those are the different noise profiles. It's always cool to add a little bit of that in the background of your mix, especially if you're trying to make it sound like you've recorded to tape and analog equipment. It's a great feature. It's also great that you have so much control over it. Moving from there, we have the wow and the flutter modules. I've explained this before on the channel, but if you're new to this concept, wow is slow pitch fluctuations that have to do with how quickly the motor spins the tape over the tape reader, the thing that actually picks up the sound and gives it out. If the tape moves fast, the pitch will rise, and if it moves too slow, the pitch will fall. So there is that gentle fluctuation. The older the tape player, the more of that you're going to be able to hear. Inside of modern versions of tape emulations, of course, you have control over the depth of that, the rate of that, and inside of Tape Pro, you actually have modulation controls as well for both the wow and the flutter independently. So if I go ahead and just crank this up, you'll be able to hear what I'm talking about. It sounds really wonky, and there could be places you use it that wonky, but in general, I think you're going to have it pretty shallow in depth, in terms of depth, and pretty slow in terms of rate. Just so it's there, you're picking up on it, but you're not knowing that it's just a wow thing. Another modern feature that they've included inside of this VST version of a tape emulation is the sync feature. So never would you have a wow synced in a piece of analog gear. It just wouldn't happen. But now you can do that and get some really interesting and creative results. Now, as I said, wow and flutter are very similar. The only difference is flutter is a faster fluctuation in the pitch. So wow is, you can definitely pick up on it, but if you go really deep and really fast with flutter, it's almost going to sound like another distortion module. So again, just more ways to color the sound and get some interesting results, or even creative ones the further you push these things. From there, we've got a tape delay. So really, Tape Pro is a noise module, if you want to say that. You've got your actual tape emulation here. You've got a saturation and a delay plugin all baked in one. So it's not just a tape emulation plugin, it's actually a multi-effect. And the fact that you can bypass any one of these means that you can use it as a multi-effect. So if I just am looking for a tape delay, I can easily come up here and turn these off, or I'd bring the drive all the way down on this one, and then I can just use this as a tape delay. Go ahead and enable it. And in fact, let me go ahead and drop that on this trumpet here, just because it's a little bit more sparsed out and we can really hear the echoes. And as you see, this is resizable. So from there, we also have to enable or bypass it, disable. We have initial, which means we have control over the dry and wet amounts. Sync, we can sync it or use milliseconds. As you can see here, I'm on 8, and this will have to do with whatever the BPM is on your DAW, and then we can unlink the left and the right so we can change them independently, have one go longer and one go shorter. One really cool feature I like inside of Tape Pro that I've never seen before is this portamento control, and this is how fast the feedback loop will change to the new time code. So let me go ahead and just turn it off sync for a second, show what I'm talking about. If I take, let me link them just again so we can really focus on what we're doing. As I move the time here, we'll actually get a pitch fluctuation inside of the delay feedback loop. I'm going to go ahead and hit the panic button. This just stops the feedback loop just in case you've got something. But the portamento control, you heard how it's really, really quick pitch fluctuation. You can hear it. You can actually turn it up, and that pitch fluctuation or the movement between the initial value and the second value will be slower and more gradual. It generates some really cool results. I'm going to hit the panic button again just because it was getting quite crazy. Creative use and control of the portamento inside of like an automation lane inside of your DAW, you're going to be able to get some really cool results. It's something that you're not going to be able to get with any other plugin. To my knowledge, I don't know any other tape emulation or tape delay emulation where you can control how quickly that happens over time. So that's very, very cool. And that's it. I mean, over here, we've got the mix knob. We've got the output. We've got an auto gain control, which just means as you increase maybe the drive or decrease the output because of the EQ curve from the response, it's just going to try to keep everything right around the same level, relative gain matching essentially, just so you shouldn't have to come in and play with the output too much. There's just one other point I want to bring up. By default, oversampling on this plugin is set to times 16, and that can be really CPU intensive, especially with people with older machines. So if you bring it into your computer and you're getting big spikes in your CPU and it's a big drain and you need to free up some power, some processing power, you can go ahead and drop that down to any one of the other options inside of here. But other than that, I would say this is a really great plugin with a lot of different features baked inside of it, and I highly suggest you checking it out on pluginboutique.com. As usual, the links are in the video description. I'm Joshua Casper, and I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.